Okay. Okay. Hi, my name is Lisa Park, and then thank you so much for coming to my thesis presentation. So before explaining the details of my thesis, I would like to briefly talk about my background. So I studied fine art before coming to ITP, and during my education at ITP, I've done several performances by using technology and programming as a tool to expand my artistic practice. So the recurring themes in my works deal with vulnerability, confrontation, liberation, and oppression. So this is the first project that I did at ITP. It's called Obsession is Sad Passion. So I wanted to do a performance that could portray my fear of not knowing what the future is going to be, and my fear of not knowing who I really am. So I have a phobia against butterflies. That is the reason why I used real butterflies in this performance to illustrate my struggles and anxiety. And by doing so, I wanted to confront myself. So during the performance, I was using heart rate sensor that modulated the voice, my sound, the pitch, and then the speed of my voice depending on my heart rate. The next project that I did is called Le Violon de Lisa. Through this performance, I wanted to portray my experience of being submissive by the culture and the society that I was raised in. So as you can see from the images, there is a nichrome wire attached on the cello bow, which is being programmed to trigger the sound whenever it touches my body. So the 2 years of education at ITP tremendously changed my perspective and my thoughts. And then those 2 years has been a journey for me. So in continuation to my previous works, my thesis is an exploration, it's an investigation for me to truly understand myself. So what is my thesis? Eunoia, it derives from a Greek word meaning beautiful thinking. It is pronounced evnia. Eunoia is a performance that uses my brain waves collected by an EEG sensor to manipulate the motion of water. So since I was young, while I've been growing up, I've always wondered how to control the contents of my emotions. The reason being is that I'm a very emotional person who gives great importance to my emotion and feelings. So it always has been challenging for me to control my mind. I've read several psychology and philosophy books, and then during my research process, I've read Western and Buddhist philosophy books, and one of them is by Friedrich Nietzsche. So this is the favorite text from the book. And then he's using the term Übermensch, which means overman, to refer to the notion of enlightenment and spiritual awakening. The next book that I read is called Non-Possession. It is written by a famous Korean Buddhist monk, Popjong. And he says that don't be swayed by your mind or feelings. Be an author of yourself. So what he's saying is that when you are possessing something, whether it's material or when you're possessing someone, on the other hand, it means that you're being possessed by them. So besides reading books, I've found several projects that use EEG sensor. So Still Sky is one of them, which is an installation that generates the sound from the metal slate that is suspended in the ceiling when an audience enters a room with wearing EEG sensor. The another project is called 1 Minute Dream State. It's a light installation that uses the artist's brain activity while he's in asleep. So I've mentioned EEG sensor so many times, and I'm pretty sure many of you will be wondering, what is EEG sensor? So it is a brainwave detecting sensor. It measures the frequency of my brain activity: alpha, beta, delta, theta. Did I say it? Alpha, beta, theta, gamma, and delta, I guess. 5 of them. 5 of them. In relation to my consciousness, state of consciousness. So what's happening is that the data collected from EEG sensor is being translated in real time to create the sound by using these programs: processing, MaxMSP, and reactor. So EEG sends the data to processing, which is linked to MaxMSP to receive all the data and numbers, and then creating the sound by using the program reactor. So here's a short demonstration how it works. So as you can see, I'm wearing an EEG sensor, and then there's a graph of all my brain activity. And then this is the MaxMSP patch where you could see all my brain activity data in numbers. So I decided to choose 15-inch speaker because of its power. The more powerful the speaker is, the more vibration could be created. And then I decided to use metal because it is the most effective material to transfer the vibration of sound. And the reason why I fabricate the metal into round shape is to symbolize infinity and unity. And also, I decided to use water because I believe it is the purest form of all kinds. And also, it reminded me of the story of Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection in the water and died in the end. Since my thesis has been an introspective process for me during the past 3 months and 4 months, I thought using water would be the best material to use for my performance. So here's the idea sketch of how the installation will be set up during the performance. There will be 5 metal plates that is placed on top of the speakers, and then I'll be standing in the middle. So the significance of number 5, why I decided to choose 5 speakers, 5 metal plates, is because I wanted to represent the idea of our basic human emotions: happiness, hatred, sadness, anger, and desire. Now I'm going to show you how I tested with my project. So the data that I received from the EEG sensor, what's being calibrated are frequency, volume, and panning of the sound. And as a result, it's creating varieties of waterforms in real time from the data received from my brain activity. And then the goal for this performance for me is to find a stillness and balance of my emotions. So supposedly, once I reach the moment of silence, there should be no sound. And now I'm going to present you my performance documentation. So overall, I learned that it's very difficult and it's very challenging to control yourself. It's very difficult. Because when I did many testing before the performance, it seemed pretty easy to control myself, meaning to calm myself down. But on the actual day of performance, I had to modify the code several times due to the change of my emotion and mood. So I realized that I would need more commitment and discipline in order to succeed this goal. So for the next step, I'm thinking of developing this idea further by making a bigger installation and then dedicating myself to achieve the goal. And thank you so much, everyone. I mean, it has been really wonderful years, and I thank each one of you. Thank you.
Can you talk about which of the NeuroSky's properties you mapped to what effects in the sound?
Oh, yeah. So I'm specifically using meditation and attention. So when you use NeuroSky MindWave, there's 5 different brain activity data, delta, alpha, beta, all those information. And then there's another 2 categories, which is attention and meditation. So those 2 are the result from those 5 categories of brain activity. And then the reason why I chose meditation and attention, those data, is because even though you're not wearing the EEG sensor, you still get some data from the alpha, beta, those, because the EEG sensor is a little flimsy. But only when you're wearing the EEG sensor, you get the data from the attention and meditation. So I felt that is the most accurate one to use. So I'm using those data and then mapping the numbers into certain range, because I did many kind of doing some practice myself just to get the range of ideas. What is my normal state data, and then when I'm in sleep, what's the data that I'm getting? And then based on those data that I received, I kind of mapped those numbers and then triggering the sound from reactor.
Okay, another hard question. What's the difference between meditation and attention?
Oh, okay. So it's actually, those are actually linked together, meaning when you're agitated, meditation goes down or goes up, and attention goes up, meditation goes down. Yeah. So actually, they are actually working as a whole. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And a follow-on question about Tom's mapping, which is, you talked about changing the code because you were in a performance situation. Right. I assume because you had more adrenaline or something like that. Right. Was your experience when you were performing that like you were a random number generator, or could you decide which kind of waves would activate which pools of water?
You mean which varieties of the water forms will be created?
Once you were in the performance, once you tweaked the code to that situation, did that give you control of the 5 pools of water, or did it just give you the overall balance between the outputs you want?
I see. So what's happening is because I mapped the numbers and the data into certain range, so that when I start the performance, it will trigger the sound. And then when I reach a certain moment, hopefully, it will make no sound. But when I did the performance on that day, it didn't make in the beginning. It didn't make any sound in the beginning, which means I was too agitated or I was too anxious, so it was already out of the range.
Was there any mood or enlightenment, per se, you wanted to evoke in the audience? Did you have a pre-existing expectation of the people who is watching your performance?
So rephrasing your question, so you're asking, did I have any expectation what the audience was gonna be thinking about?
Right. Or if you wanted to evoke a certain emotion by presenting.
No, actually, this was more like a personal meditative moment that I wanted to have by myself. So I was thinking of doing this performance for a really long time, like a few hours. And then, yeah. So it was more about kind of myself more than showing this performance to others.